Thanks for coming to my talk today about whether Google is trying to kill ASO. I've had, a few heated debates at the pub with my team on this. I've had a few questions today about why I've chosen this as my talk title. I think we as a company have been seeing a lot of maybe smallish changes to Google Play over the past 6 months to a year. There's been a lot happening and a lot of uncertainty and turbulence with the Google Play Store. So, we've had these heated debates about really how far they're going to take it, and we're going to go through a little bit of that today. A little bit about us. So we're from Yodel Mobile. There are a few of us in the room today. I'm Megan. I'm one of the strategy directors at Yodel. So I've been at the company for about 9 years, working on app launch and scaling of all different sizes of business, all different types of industry. And I was honored to win App Marketer of the Year late last year from the App Promotion Awards. I also have Nat in the room. She's one of our senior ASO managers. She is here to make sure I can answer any more specific ASO questions there might be at the end of this. And we also have Arazu, who's set it up so that we could all be here today. So there's a few of us. Please do come and talk to us afterwards if you want to. Yodel Mobile as a company is essentially an app consultancy. We've launched and scaled hundreds, thousands of apps. We've worked on user acquisition, app store optimization. We look at product, tooling, launches, consultancy. So we really give kind of that 360 service across kind of a lot of different global markets. And what we'll be going through today, first up, what changes is Google actually making to the Play Store, which really disrupt and diminish a lot of our established ASO practices. We'll also look at how marketers can adapt to that and what also might be coming next. We'll also look a little bit at Apple. I don't want to ignore Apple as 50% of the marketplace, and really whether we can learn anything from the changes Google is making, and what that does mean for the future of ASO on Apple. And lastly, whether there might even be room for a new player, a new app store in the market, which is a controversial topic, but we're going to have a look at it. So on to our big question, is Google trying to kill ASO? There are a few factors which have made me ask this question. I'll go into each of these in more depth shortly, but to give you an idea, first of all, we're seeing diminishing impact from keyword density optimization. So for those of you who may be newer to ASO, we're actually, an established Google Play ASO technique is to use keyword density and keyword repetition in your long description, in your text, and Google then determines that as a relevant keyword. You're more likely to rank for it in terms of visibility. But over the past kind of year, 6 months, we've seen that this technique is having less and less of an impact on our overall discovery, our overall keyword rankings. We're also seeing more automation being introduced for writing store listings. And like I say, I'll go into this a little bit more, but we are seeing some things that we just need to be a little bit wary of as they're launching more and more of these tools. We think they're going to become more ubiquitous when thinking about app store optimization. And lastly, we're seeing increased cannibalization of organic traffic. There's been an increase in the presence of ads in Play Store search over the past kind of 6 months. And that is really having a big impact on overall discovery in terms of an organic sense. So I have here a chart from AppTweak. This really shows you when big updates are happening to the Play Store. Now, the red line at the top here shows you that kind of normal threshold for changes. In the past 6 months, you can see there have been around 7 major app updates, or algorithm updates, sorry. And in the past kind of 6 months prior and the 6 months before that, we can see there's only 1 major update in each of those periods. So that really shows how turbulent of a time it is with the App Store algorithm right now. Every time that algorithm is updated, it does impact your performance. Sometimes re-indexing of keywords happens. It can really kind of cause big dips or even big jumps in your overall visibility, and that's what we're seeing. But with these changes, as I say, we are seeing diminished impact from keyword repetition, which is traditionally quite an established ASO technique. So why do we think this is happening? Throughout this talk, I want to look at the broader business background of Google and Apple when we get onto it, so that we can really understand, the context behind why they might be making these changes. Google has a long-standing background in search. The Google search engine is really where Google kind of started out, got that initial traction. And with that, they have always had a strong basis for machine learning. We are seeing a lot around machine learning, AI in the marketplace right now. And I think Google are aiming to keep up with that or even stay ahead of that. So we're going to see further changes. What they're really trying to do is understand context better, understand, reading and delving into text better, which reduces their reliance on just specific keywords. This also makes sense for the sheer amount of apps in the Google Play Store. There's just over 3 million in the store at the moment, I think. And we do, they have a little bit of a discovery problem. They want to rely a little bit less on whether a marketer is good at ASO and good at identifying keywords, and they want to rely more on the overall context and what might be truly relevant for that app. So we think this is why we're seeing some of these changes. Now, I'll come on to really what we can do to adapt in a second, but first of all, I want to look at our second point around automated tools. Now, Google have recently launched a couple of different tools which aim to automate certain processes for ASO. Now, the first one is generation of short and long descriptions through just a few prompts. You can see here you can add a theme, a tone of voice, and an audience, and it'll spit out a short description and a long description for you. This is currently being tested just for custom store listings, which are custom landing pages on the Google Play Store, which you can send specific traffic to. But we think this will eventually be rolled out to write main store listings as well. You can see it's not advanced enough for that right now. It's really basing a lot of it on the main store listing already and just adapting that. But at some point, they will be able to generate those store listings from scratch. And we think that's kind of the direction they're heading in. The second tool that they have launched is the ability to translate your listing into 10 different languages automatically. So obviously that's great for scalability, for localization, but we do need to be careful with both of these tools and how we use them. Although they're still very early on in their development, we have very much no information on how well optimized a listing that was written by Google might be, how they would determine the emphasis for your product. We know that straight up translation of a store listing isn't something that's recommended really in the industry, because we need to make sure that we're adapting to culturalization. The word that we use here might not be the word that they use in another language. So I think we need to be very, very careful how much we rely on these as we start to see Google push them more for usage from everyone. And this really comes back again to their machine learning and their AI capabilities and trying to kind of keep up with the market and stay ahead of the market. They're launching this, with suggesting that it's to help you build out your listings quickly. But as I say, we have no information on how useful these tools are going to be right now and how effective they're going to be. We also risk reducing competitive edge by using the same tooling as others. If everyone was using these tools and relying on them, you're all going to be kind of using exactly the same strategies to rank. And we need to be careful of that. So marketers really need to see them as an aid rather than a solution. They're not necessarily going to help us with these core goals of ASO. They might save a bit of time, but that discoverability isn't going to increase by using them. So what can we do, right? There are a couple things here which are really affecting our overall discovery and our techniques for discovery at the moment. One of the things that we've been doing is using Google Natural Language Analysis for our optimization. So you can see here an example of this tool. It's a Google-owned tool, not an automation tool, more an analysis tool. So it tells us a lot more about how Google is perceiving a certain text. You can see here I've input TikTok's long description into the tool, and it's come back with 3 key categories that it associates that text with. Now, those categories categories tell us a lot about what types of keywords Google would determine relevant for optimization or not relevant potentially. And essentially for each of those categories, you get a confidence score, which is a score between 0 and 1. The higher the score, the more confidently they would associate you with that category, and the more keywords within that category they might rank you for. When we're looking at this for our optimization, we really have to identify kind of what our key categories are that we do want to be ranking for. There are thousands and thousands of categories and subcategories that you could be sat within. One place that we can start is by looking at our competitors, aligning ourselves with them and the kind of keywords that they are ranking for, piecing all that data together to understand really whether those are important to us or if we want to look at other categories. So let's say you've just written your description and you, in one category, you have kind of a medium level confidence score, maybe around the 0.5. There are two ways that we can really look at this for optimization. And the first one is increasing your category depth, so increasing your confidence score within that core category. The second one is category breadth, so increasing the number of categories that you are associated with. As you can imagine, when we're doing our optimization, the most effective is to do both, but it takes a little bit of time to really build that up. And I think really focusing on one category and building that strength in that category is the best kind of first place to start. I have a, I guess, anonymous example from one of our clients here. For anyone who's not familiar with this chart, it's essentially got total ranked keywords on the y-axis, and then the color coding shows you where that keyword is ranked. So dark green is first place, light green is 2 to 3, and so on. You can see here these big dips in points where our keywords are indexed, and really this is driven by a lot of those big algorithm updates. When it's significant enough, they will re-index all the keywords across all apps, and you will see these big dips in visibility. But what's really important is that over time, you can see we've actually benefited from this. Over time, we've really, really grown significantly our number of ranked keywords. We did see for competitor apps that some were going down with every single kind of keyword re-indexing, and that's because they weren't really working with the algorithm and the types of updates that Google is making at the moment. So it's really important to keep on top of what Google is looking for, what the algorithm is looking for, how it's perceiving your app, and then how we can counteract and benefit from these changes. I have one more, again, anonymous example. This is a different client that we've been working on, and you can see over the past year, we've been working on both the breadth and depth of the categories. And I just wanted to show this to show that this did have a real world impact. You know, it's all very well talking about ranked keywords, but what did it mean for their actual install volumes and their actual discovery? We did see 75% more keywords ranked, but we also saw a 536% increase in their overall Explore installs. So this was really, really effective from a performance point of view, as well as just, you know, the keywords that we're ranking for. I guess coming back to our points around the types of updates that Google is making, we're also seeing more ads prevalent in the Google search results. You can see two types of search result here. The first one is a non-brand search, so this is travel. There are 3 ads at the top, and then we have our organic results from that point forward. So ads are very much prioritized in these search results. When we look at a brand search, so Skyscanner, for example, there's still an ad at the top, but to be fair, you do get an extended brand result. Google Play has identified that this is a brand term, and it's given, you know, a more enhanced search result for that brand. It's an organic result. They get the screenshots in there. It is the most engaging part of the page. But when we look below that, we also see further ads. So everything on this page is an ad apart from that one result. I think we need to be very aware of this because this does mean that more of our organic traffic is getting cannibalized by advertising. You know, some of our clients have said to us, why are our search installs dropping? And we're seeing a big drop in those. And actually, when you look at it, you do see kind of an equivalent increase in installs from ads and referrers, if that's something that you're running. Obviously, Google Ads is what you would need to be running for that to be the case. But we do see kind of an equivalent increase for those where there's a dip in organic. Obviously not great for organic discoverability. So why do we think this is happening? I mean, if we come back to Google, right, and their search engine, they are primarily an ad-driven company. They very much benefit from driving increased ad spend to Google Ads, and they will continue to push that. We might see this even get worse, I think, if we look at the search engine on web. For certain popular terms, you see up to 4 ad results, and actually they take up all of the above the fold space, and that's on both desktop and mobile. We are likely to see a similar trend on Google Play. I think they're going to push as much as they can towards that advertising because that's what benefits them. So what can we do about it? This one is tricky because obviously if the space is changing to some extent, you're just going to see a little bit more importance put on paid advertising. But I think we need to kind of maybe change our mindset and add some new KPIs into our success metrics. There are blurred lines between paid and organic on app stores. For a few reasons already. We already have brand protection campaigns on both stores. We already have a lot of multi-touch point journeys, especially for apps who have websites as well. You know, there's a lot of kind of cross usage, different platform usage, and it can be very hard to attribute properly where your traffic is coming from. We're even seeing a lot of unattributed traffic from the recent scan changes, right? There's a lot of traffic coming through that looks like organic, and actually it's come from an ad. So there are already these blurred lines, and they're only going to get potentially worse. But we can focus on blended CPA, which is really where we look at the bigger picture as well. We incorporate that, right? Like what elements of what we're doing are working together to give a result larger than the sum of its parts? Where are we seeing those synergies? If we consider the whole picture then, traditionally, ASO is very focused on 2 elements. The first thing is store search. We can do our metadata optimization to really build visibility here. And A/B testing, so conversion rate optimization for anyone that does land on the page. This is kind of the very, very core of ASO. We have seen recently new content opportunities. So we have in-app events on iOS, we have promotional content on Android. These are additional kind of content cards where a user can, or an app can, really highlight big changes in their app or events that might be happening, just take up more real estate in the space, and really get a little bit more opportunity to increase that discovery. It's also really good for re-engagement. We do tend to see that it does re-engage users who already have the app as well. When we consider the role of user acquisition, there's kind of a few different ways. So you could have all your advertising driving to the store listing. This is obviously going to impact the results of your store listing experiments. So if you're running an A/B test and all your traffic is organic, that might have a very different result to if you have 50% organic traffic, 50% user acquisition traffic, because those are very different types of users coming in. They've had very different types of experiences so far. We can also add in, though, our custom landing pages now, which we have on both iOS and Android, that can separate out your traffic nicely. But again, then, you have 2 very different types of learnings, whether they're transferable is something worth testing, whether, these 2 different types of traffic are quite independently different in what converts them, also something that we need to consider. And actually, even creative testing on your advertising platforms can massively impact your overall conversion rate on the stores. If you change your creative strategy, and that's their first touch point for seeing the app, they go onto the App Store and those creatives don't align or match up or fit with what they were expecting to see, you're likely to see a big drop off in your overall conversion rate. I think the key point here, though, is it's really hard to isolate any one impact here. There's a lot of different activity going on and they all kind of interlink and all impact each other. And that's what we need to be more aware of and more accepting of. It's going to be very, very difficult to say, hey, we did some in-app events and this is exactly what that impact was from it, because it may have impacted other areas as well. So looking at that blended CPA is going to be really, really important moving forward. So, come back to our big question. Is Google trying to kill ASO? Google are making some moves. They're making some big moves, which do increase their control over which apps are ranking highly in the store. And that in turn, theoretically decreases marketers' control, at least if we continue on with our traditional ASO techniques. We need to ensure we're not complacent here. Over-reliance on Google-owned automation tools may diminish your competitive edge. I think it's very easy to take new tools, try them, get really excited, but I think we need to take a critical eye to what those are and what benefit they're really going to bring to us. We're going to see further cannibalization of organic traffic, which will potentially mean some increased reliance on paid traffic, but really we need to start considering how all these things are working together, because there will be value from both. And lastly, marketers should be looking for new strategies which should put them above the competition. It's worth noting that we have quite a few of our ASO team here today, so do come by the booth. We have one in the networking area and we can chat a little bit more about some of the things that we've been trying and we've been seeing success from. This is today obviously just a couple of those things, but there's a lot more that we've been doing. And as I said, we really want to take a look at Apple because, you know, that's great. We know that Google Play is doing a lot right now. We really need to be aware of all these changes. But what's Apple doing? Where are we going with Apple? Now, Apple is a very different kind of company because they do not have the same level of experience in search algorithms. They do not have a search engine. And that really means that to improve and change the discovery elements on the App Store would require a massive amount of investment from them. They just don't have the experience right now. There are indications that this is something that they're working on, and there are motivations, big motivations for them, which would make sense. They have been allowing Google to be the default search engine on Apple since the very beginning of iPhones. That means a massive amount of traffic, ad revenue, that they're missing out on. And that's not going to make them happy. It also doesn't really fit with Apple's ethos, right? Apple do like to build their own products. They like to build their own versions. We've seen it with Apple News, Apple Maps, Apple TV. They want to build everything themselves. So there are indications right now and rumors right now that Apple are actually working on this. But I think it's going to take them a while to be able to really launch it, integrate it into the App Store. It's not something that we need to worry about in the immediate. What we are likely to see, though, is new opportunities for content creation. They have very heavily focused on curation within the App Store to solve the discovery problem when there are millions of apps on the stores. And that's really where their resources currently focused. They have a lot of editors working on curating these lists every single day and every single week. And they're more likely to, in the immediate, launch some more of those opportunities. We've listed just a few of kind of those types of lists that they build, but I think it's worth going through, again, an anonymous case study of one of our client apps. So they were kind of a challenger app. They're not a small app, but they're not one of the market leaders. They really had no featuring in the store at all whatsoever for probably about a year. we invested quite heavily in in-app events. And what we saw was that they started getting picked up quite a lot for in-app events of the week, those kind of very in-app event related featuring opportunities. But this clearly kind of got editors to take notice. Apple do also tend to reward people that use as many of their tools and capabilities as possible. I think we were seeing a bit of that. But they started getting featured for kind of much broader curations and lists than they were before. And this actually culminated in them being featured as App of the Day on the US App Store. So that was amazing. They obviously saw massive, massive impact from that. And we've continued to see a very high level of featuring from that point forward. So there really is an opportunity for any level of app to really build up a lot of traction in the App Store, especially with entry-level things like in-app events, which really anyone can run. So I just want to talk a little bit about a new player. I mentioned this at the start. We obviously are very, very controlled right now by Google Play and the Apple App Store, but this might be changing. There are a ton of apps in the app stores, millions, and discovery is a problem. Discovery is heavily reliant on popularity and marketing budgets. That's really where the majority of your visibility is going to come from. If you have one or both of these things, you're going to get a lot more visibility than otherwise. But that really raises the barrier to entry for new entrants into the market, of which we know there are a lot, and a lot of them probably doing a really good job. There are already a lot of third-party app stores out there on Google Play, on Android even. So we've got Huawei, we've got Samsung, we've got Amazon, and none of them have really had much success. So why is this important to talk about? I think the stores that we see right now very much sit as additional shelving. They kind of are somewhere for an app to sit idly, but they don't really offer much in the way of incremental growth opportunities. And that's really the core problem that we're seeing. It means that no one is really bothering to do much about it. They all just go to Google Play. The difference, though, is that Apple has no third-party app stores right now. And that's changing. This is the big change that we're seeing. So the DMA has actually required Apple to offer alternative app stores in the EU. It's deemed them anti-competitive, and they have to start allowing this. Now, Apple have given an initial proposal for how this is going to work, and it makes it really, really expensive for developers to list their app on an alternative store. Unsurprisingly, they're trying to really dissuade anyone from getting that off the ground. But that's just the first proposal. We might still see the DMA come back and say, this isn't good enough, we need another go, let's go around again, and we might get somewhere in the middle. So it's really hard to say right now exactly what the impact of this is going to be, but I think there's an opportunity for it. iOS users have always been, on average, more valuable than Android users. It's always been kind of a primary market for a lot of apps over the past 10 years. And there are a lot of players who really strongly oppose Apple practices and would really love to see someone take them down a peg. So we are seeing a few players who are very, very motivated to enter this alternative app store market. To be honest, I think if we were to see anyone really win in this space, it would have to be someone with that existing infrastructure. It has to be someone like, Xbox, Steam, Microsoft, someone who already has the basics that they can really build on to launch an app store like that. And they have to just solve the discovery problem. This is still really what we're struggling with Apple and Google. But I think it's possible, and I think that it may be on the horizon. There's still a lot that needs to be figured out, but it's very much possible. So, coming to the end now, and then we'll go on to questions. There are a few key takeaways from today. It's really important to know that if we keep doing exactly the same ASO techniques that we have been doing, these are only going to get less effective. There are a lot of algorithm updates happening. The industry is moving forward, and a lot of those established techniques are not as effective as they used to be. You're going to start seeing your discovery traffic go down, and you're going to start seeing a big impact from that. we need to make sure that we're paying attention to the algorithm and how that algorithm is changing. At the moment, we're seeing a lot of success from the natural language analysis tool, but there may be more tools which come out, there may be more changes which happen, which give us more that we can work with. We need to utilize broader ASO techniques to drive strongest impact across discovery and conversion. We talked a lot about, different content opportunities that there are on the stores, different testing opportunities outside of just discovery, which will make a big impact on your overall installs. And all of these things work together to give you a better impact than before. So it's really important not only to look at, search and keywords and visibility, but also how we can then use that to the best of our ability. And as we spoke about, we're going to have to start thinking about the overall impact outside of just ASO. I think marketers are going to have to work together across boundaries a little bit more to understand how user acquisition is impacting ASO or, brand awareness work or social media, whatever that might be. I think this is going to become a really key metric, because you will see, you stop one type of activity, actually your results might go down even more than you thought they would. And lastly, staying on top of emerging alternative stores. This is still a little way off. It's not going to happen overnight, but it might happen. There is a lot happening in this space, and I think there will be some new discovery opportunities which are launched. If you can be one of the first to that opportunity when some of those emerging app stores start to gain traction, that could be a really, really big opportunity as an app to really benefit from it. And that's everything I have today. It's worth just noting we are offering free app audits for kind of areas of interest. ASO, for example, we can audit your current ASO and give you an idea of where you can be improving. Just come by our booth at the networking area and talk to us if that's something that's interesting to you. But otherwise, can I open up to any questions?